Imagine admitting your grandma or grandpa, or any loved one for that matter, into a nursing home. They no longer are independent and have to rely on the help of others, strangers. What are your worries? What are your fears? One of the biggest concerns of family members, of residents, is safety. Those listening who have experienced the process of this probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Nursing homes get bad reputations because of fearful people and their concerns of safety. Even with the amount of falls and injuries in homes, it's less than those. Even with the amount of falls and injuries in homes, it's less than those who would have stayed at home. So I'll have to elaborate on that a little bit, because with the research I did on this, the statistic was a little bit confusing. So basically it was saying that those who go into a nursing home, there are still more falls in a nursing home than there are at home, but that's because of the people that are in the nursing home are weaker, or they have more chronic illnesses, and people that are still living at home don't struggle as much because they're in a better state to where they don't have to be in a nursing home. Before I get into the speech, let's discuss statistics and background info on safety. In this speech, I'm going to educate you on the safety in nursing homes and the tools used to secure the safety. In a year, at a nursing home with 100 residents, the reports are 100 to 200 falls. So that's about 1 to 2 falls per resident. Could be more for some, could be none for any. 10 to 20% result in injury, 2 to 6% result in a fracture or serious injury, and 1,800 result in death in a year. An example of this would be a situation that I've personally been a part of. There was one time that I was an aide on a hall with a resident who was non-compliant with their alarm. Basically, they just kept getting up even though they knew they were alarmed and they weren't supposed to get up. And it came down to, at one point, this resident was pushing their hand on the alarm so it wouldn't sound, so the aide wouldn't know that they were actually transferring themselves, and then couldn't respond. This resident ended up falling and got taken to the hospital, came back on hospice, and eventually ended up dying in result of that fall. Another example would be a resident I wasn't here for at the time. I was here earlier in the shift that day, but he transferred himself as well. Similar situation, got sent to the hospital, a few broken bones, and it resulted in death a couple days later. Falls are more and more common in homes because, again, residents are weaker and more frail than those at home. Residents in nursing homes tend to be older than those that stay at home. Residents in nursing homes tend to have more chronic conditions, and they tend to have more difficulty walking. Those at home typically do not have those issues, which is again why the falls are less frequent at home, if that makes sense. It's kind of confusing. Now that you're aware of why and how the safety of residents can be so easily affected, let's talk about how living in a nursing home can help. Gate belts, in my opinion, are one of the single most important parts of resident safety. They set the tone of every transfer. Any type of movement from one place to another involves a transfer. The belt is very important when it comes to safety of a resident. Now I'm going to demonstrate how a gate belt is used. So typically you would wrap it around a resident, and then it goes through one of the loops, or whatever you want to call it, like so. You'll adjust it to the size of the resident and then put it back through. So when a resident is transferring or walking or whatever you're doing with that resident, transferring is still walking, I guess, but you're gonna hold the back of the gate belt at all times. Basically never let go of the gate belt unless the resident has been seated or securely transferred. When transferring, you need to use it as your guide. It can steady the like the lost balance a resident may have. So if they're walking and they start to get a little bit wobbly, your hand on the back of that gate belt is what's gonna secure them back into a steady motion or get them back on their feet. It can also break a fall, and by that I mean if a resident starts to fall and they are heavier than what you can keep up, or their knees go out or whatever it may be. Having the gate belt can help you lower the resident to the ground instead of them just falling and hurting themselves or breaking a bone or whatever it may be. Easy stance and Hoyer lifts are also important when it comes to safety of residents and their transferring. They're used when residents typically can't bear any weight or can only bear a little bit of weight. Alarms also play a huge role. I kind of talked about that in the examples that I gave. But they really just notify you when a resident that shouldn't be transferring by themselves is trying to. Now that you're aware of what goes into the safety procedures within a nursing home and how things can be prepared, it's also beneficial to be aware of all this stuff when thinking of putting a loved one in the home or trying to accept that. You may still struggle with the levels of grievance of a loved one moving into a nursing home, but will hopefully feel a little bit better understanding now that you've been educated. Now you're aware of what steps are taken to keep your loved one safe and how it's more beneficial than them staying at home where they don't have the proper care or help that they're needed. As you normally say in many other life situations, it's better to be safe than sorry. Although long-term care is a tough pill to swallow, it's always best to have an extra set of helping hands to be there for your loved one.